Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is my review of Antiporno, a Japanese drama from 2016 that is part of the Nikkatsu Roman Porno Reboot project, which was intended to be a throwback to the softcore films that were produced primarily in the 1970s and 1980s by Nikkatsu Studio. Now, Antiporno is one of 5 movies that are a part of this project, which also includes Wet Woman in the Wind, a film that I previously reviewed on this channel. Now check out that video for my thoughts on Roman porno films in general. Now I found Wet Woman in the Wind to be a surprisingly interesting movie, but how does Antiporno stack up? Well, Kyoko, played by Ami Tomite, is a renowned artist and writer trapped in a solitary, gilded cage of her own success, where she speaks to the phantom memory of her dead sister, Noriko. Now, one day, her assistant arrives to help her prepare to be interviewed by a prominent lifestyle magazine. But as she wrestles with some psychological issues, she alleviates her insecurities by subjecting her older assistant to a series of sexual humiliations in front of some other women who show up to her apartment. Now, the first thing to point out is that Antiporno was directed by our good friend Shion Sono, who has a history of making perverted movies. So this kind of thing is right up his alley. And he knows how to take this kind of material and create something interesting with it. And even some of his sleaziest films, like Guilty of Romance, have some interesting elements within them, as well as some solid performances by the lead actresses. Antiporno has these same qualities. Now, I will say, however, that, the opening half hour is probably the weakest section of the entire film in terms of content. The monologue and the dialogue is a little bit awkward, I think. There is some normal chit-chat regarding art and whatnot, but there's also some discussions regarding sex as well. And some of the statements seem like they're trying to be philosophical to a degree, but some viewers may find them to be maybe a bit shallow in their observations. I think Antiporno really kind of hits its stride at around the 30-minute mark, because that's when the script writing kind of kicks into high gear. This is a very psychological film that throws a few curveballs along the way, and that makes Antiporno more thought-provoking than you might expect, even while you're watching the opening half hour. One of the big themes that it touches upon are the trappings of Japanese women who are technically given all of the freedoms in that country, but still feel limited in certain ways by a male-driven society. Another observation that I found very amusing is the double standards and hypocrisy of how parents teach children about sex, which is applicable for many countries outside of Japan as well. There are a few hilarious scenes regarding this topic in particular that are rather memorable. Now, performances in this are good, especially considering the fact that a few of these actresses had to portray characters who are mentally unhinged. In regard to production design, most of the film takes place in one large room, and that acts as almost like the character's apartment, but also her personal studio. And, thankfully the room is extremely colorful with its bright yellow walls, and it looks like something out of an art museum, which makes sense because our lead character is an artist. I love the use of yellow in movies, and this film obviously visually pleased me because of that. But isn't this just supposed to be some type of softcore porn flick or something? You might be asking yourself that. Well, Japan has had a long history of adding artistry to sexually charged films that probably should have been, lame nudie flicks on their surface. And this trend extends back over 50 years when directors like Koji Wakamatsu were making films in the 1960s. It took me a little while to kind of get used to these kinds of films, but I'm kind of a fan of them now. You know what I'm saying? As long as they have enough content to keep me engaged. And that's kind of the big thing for me, because some of these films do not, and they're just boring sex films. But some of them do add quite a bit of artistry and, enough content to make them interesting. But again, with that said, there is a lot of nudity in Antiporno, as well as some acts of sexual humiliation that are inflicted on some of the characters, so just be prepared for that. But while I do think that this film is probably a bit too odd and sexual for some viewers, check it out if you like, if you're the type of person who likes unusual psychological art films that have a bunch of nudity in it, this is one to put on your list, or if you're a fan of the director. The runtime of 76 minutes definitely helps. It makes it kind of an easy sit, I think. So Antiporno is available on Region 1 DVD in the United States, as well as some legitimate streaming services like Amazon. And it's also available, I think, on the Netflix DVD service, which still exists, believe it or not. So I recommend this one. It's a pretty cool flick. And as always, we'll see you next time.